Hi, my name is Daniel, and this is a reaction and analysis of High Ren by Ren. This isn't a first-time reaction. I've actually seen this many times. I've seen many reactions. If you're here, it's probably because you scraped the bottom of the barrel, the reactions barrel, and I'm the dregs. But I'm posting this because I think there's a lot to say that other people aren't saying, and I'd like to take a crack at it. I am nobody in particular, just a guy who loves music and literature, so not a doctor or lawyer or a squirrel suit enthusiast. Uh, I did script this intro, but the rest will be an unscripted single take. I've also avoided listening to the song for a little while, just so I can give a fresher take. And one last thing. If by some miracle you are watching this and you haven't watched the original video, please do first. I'm going to pause a lot and it will be infuriating. Besides, Ren deserves all the views and more. So let's jump in. I'm not going to comment a lot on the videography. I don't know enough about it to do it really. The whole pig costume with the blood and everything, that's like symbolism I don't understand. Just to point that out. I will start out by saying a little bit of the obvious. In a hospital gown, he's in a wheelchair. I watched a reaction by a doctor. I don't remember who the name was, but they pointed out that the way he was flexing his feet indicates that he's not actually lame, or he's not actually, he actually is able to walk, which I thought was interesting, but that's understandable. And I also think that it sets us up in a very interesting way. He is in a pretty vulnerable place. If you've ever worn one of those hospital gowns, often you're not wearing anything underneath, so it's a very vulnerable feeling to be wearing that. He's also just one man and a guitar, which is, I think, other than singing a cappella, maybe the most intimate vocal experience that you can have. And so it feels like there is an immediate desire to be deeply connected with the audience. The room is also very sparse. You don't see a lot of distractions. There's just a couple of lights. So I think what we're seeing here is a desire to connect pretty directly with the audience. I did say I would pause a lot. So as he's playing here, there's sort of a lot that you can glean pretty immediately. The first thing is that there's a ton of classical influence. You can hear that just from the series of notes that he's playing, sort of the more scale type melodies that he's playing, and it also has a lack of dissonance right now. Dissonance is not a thing that you see a lot of or is used kind of hyper intentionally in classical music. So the lack of dissonance here tells us that this isn't grunge, rock, metal, etc. We also see really aggressive picking. So he's really plucking hard on the strings. When he pulls the string, there's like a little bit of a buzzing that you'll hear as he's plucking, and that is a lot of classical music will use more aggressive plucking, but not that aggressive. So it's like we're getting this classical sound, but there's something that's already off. It's already a little too aggressive in a very subtle way. I believe that this is just a matter of that timing there is not perfect. As he's playing those, he's just a fraction of a hair behind the beat. I don't believe that's intentional. I think that's just because that's a difficult thing to play. And acoustic guitars are much harder to play than electric guitars. You are providing all of the power for that acoustic energy versus, on an electric guitar, it's amplified, of course. And so I think it's just difficult to play that riff very quickly. This also is just a single take for him, which means that any shot will necessarily have some imperfections in it. Okay, so here we're seeing the first really obvious sign that something is kind of bizarre. That little bend on that note, that is not a thing that you would see in a classical piece, classical acoustic guitar piece. That bend indicates that some of those initial clues maybe were correct and were intentional rather than just bad guitar playing. Okay, now we're getting a little bit more dissonance in our intervals. Okay, so now we have a series of ascending diminished chords. Again, not a thing that you would see in most classical pieces, although playing around with a diminished chord certainly is not something that no classical music does. So right here, we go from something that's very melodic, that has a very strong melody to it and sort of carries you along with it, has a lot going on, to something that's very simple. And I know whenever I watch this part or whenever I listen to this part, there's something that sort of relaxes in me. There's something very soothing about that very simple, I think it's like a fifth interval over a bass note. And there's something very like simple, and the timbre and the pitch of it is very calming and soothing. To me, it feels like it's a handoff, when musicians play and they go from riffing all over the place and doing crazy fills, and then they go to something simple and they're handing it off to another instrumentalist or another vocalist. Okay, so a few things to touch on there. First of all, he has a really nice vibrato, and it's quite intentional. You can feel how he's keeping it very clean up until he sustains those notes at the top. This is also I know for me, hearing this section didn't give me any clues about what was going to happen next. Typically, when you listen to a song, there are all sorts of patterns and archetypes that a song will fit into, and you hear something and you're like, oh, the rest of the song will sound kind of like this. And when there are one or two subversions of that, it's considered a pretty big it's considered a big deal. It's a big moment in the song. Here, we don't have that clue. There can't be a subversion because what he's doing so far doesn't fit into an archetype. There is no genre where you have a classical guitar piece that's getting like weirdly distorted, that it's like over aggressively plucked, and then goes into this sort of like, I don't know, mid-head voice, maybe like sub-angelic falsetto. That's not a thing. You know what I mean? That's not like a thing where we can point to a series of other songs and say, oh, it probably adheres to this pattern. So it's clear when he stops that section, when he stops the falsetto and starts adding more percussion on the guitar with his hand, and starts being a little bit more gentle with his chord strumming. It's clear that something is going to change, that there's like a next step in this song. But for me, at least, I was completely unable to predict what that next step would be. And I think that's really exciting. I think it's really cool when a musical piece is both cohesive, it has a personality that is consistent from start to end, has a clear message, etc., and yet doesn't project everything that it's going to tell you right from the get-go. So I think this is really cool.
Hi there, Ran. It's been a little while. Did you miss me? You thought you buried me, didn't you? Risky. Cause I always come back. Deep down, you know that. Deep down, you know I'm always in periphery. Ran, on your pleased to see me. It's been weeks since we spoke, bro. I know you need me. You're the sheep, I'm the shepherd. Not your place to lead me. Not your place to be biting off the hand that feeds me.
Okay. There is so much in these lyrics. I'm going to try not to go too crazy, but I mean that's what I'm here for. So, uh, first of all, his tone is very grating from the beginning. Uh, his falsetto was very pleasant, very soothing. Um, there was a little bit of I would call like staccato or percussiveness to his falsetto, or like reattacks of the same verse or the same notes. But in general, it was very like calming and friendly or pleasant sound. This is not that. This is grating. There's some distortion to to his vocalization. He's almost growling it, right? Um, and he's also very familiar. So he's saying, "Hi, Ren. It's been a little while. Did you miss me?" Right. So this is not a stranger. This is so we know that this is not Ren, and uh, we know that this is not a we know it's not a good thing, right? In the sense that his the way that he is more aggressive now with his playing on the guitar and the way that he is expressing his voice is a subtextual communication that this is an antagonist of some kind, right? Um, and he said, "You thought you'd buried me." When I think of burying, I think of trauma. Like, what things do people bury? There's obviously, like, you can bury things physically, but when you bury something within yourself, I think of trauma. So that was my first thought, that this is trauma rising up in some way. Um, he says that it's risky because he always comes back. That also makes me think of trauma. And he says he's always in the periphery, um, which again sort of reinforces that notion to me. And but then the next thing he says is, "Are you pleased to see me?" So that could be like a sarcastic, uh, sort of just like attack. Uh, but we definitely know that if this does represent trauma, then Ren would not be pleased to see him. So there is some question about this identity here. Uh,
Oh, you need me, you're the sheep, I'm the shepherd, not your place to lead me, not your place to be biting off the hand that feeds me. Hi, Brent.
okay, so that part is also very strange. He says, "You're the sheep, I'm the shepherd, not your place to lead me." So this feels like he's saying he should be in control. It's not your place to lead me, not your place to be biting off the hand that feeds me. Okay, so we know a couple of things here. First of all, it's not trauma, because trauma is not the shepherd. It can't be the shepherd, right? Um, all right. Well, it was going to be one take, but then my camera stopped working, so I guess it'll be two takes. All right. So jumping back in here.
Ran on your pleased to see me. It's been weeks since we spoke, bro. I know you need me. You're the sheep, I'm the shepherd, not your place to lead me, not your place to be biting off the hand that feeds me.
All right. So this sort of it breaks my theory. So he says, "You're the sheep, I'm the shepherd, not your place to lead me." So he's saying he, which in my mind was maybe trauma, is the shepherd. Okay, well, it can't be trauma then, right? No matter how significant trauma is, it's never the shepherd, even if it is like controlling your actions, or even if it is does have an enormous impact on you. It's never active in that way, really. The shepherd has a plan and a purpose, right? Whereas trauma does not. It's a thing that exists that causes you to behave differently. Okay, so my theory is bust. Then he says, "Not your place to be biting off the hand that feeds me." So before that, he was saying, we haven't talked in a while. So that means that in some ways, attention to him is sustaining him. That is the hand that feeds him. So ignoring him is in some way starving him. So he wants to be in control and he wants attention. Cool.
Hi, Bren. I've been taking some time to be distant. I've been taking some time to be still. I've been taking some time to be by myself since my therapist told me I'm ill.
Already a lot to say. So his demeanor just changed completely there. I'm not going to say anything about the flickering lights and everything. Y'all have already heard that. But his the timbre of his voice changes quite a bit. His head changes direction. He's facing the other way, and he's a lot more calm in the way that he speaks. He is not, however, a a counterpoint to the original voice. By which I mean, if the original voice is sort of an obvious antagonist, like he's giving us cue after cue that this is an antagonist, this is not an obvious protagonist, or at least it's not an obvious angelic or perfect figure. So
And to be still. I've been taking some time to be by myself since.
see how percussive and defensive he is there. I've taken some time to be by myself. It is my right to be by myself, and I have taken that time. This is not a confident, well-adjusted voice that is speaking here. This is someone that is in the midst of struggle, who is seeking solutions and answers, and is trying to respond to this voice. We also hear another thing. He addresses that other personality as Ren. So I think one of the first things I said is, oh, well, we know this isn't Ren. Well, I guess it is. So here's where we learn that there is, that there are multiple high Rens, or multiple Rens that are being addressed here. So that's our clue that this is sort of an exploration of multiple aspects of one's personality. However, that's really weird, because what we're seeing originally is, again, clear antagonist. And this is not a clear, perfect figure. This is not a clear counterpoint to that. So what that makes me think is, now we're in the middle. So we're on one side, I'm going to use the word evil. I know that's kind of hyper simplistic, but we're going to use the word evil just for giggles for now. So we have the evil Ren, and now we have center Ren, or like a real Ren. We have the Ren that we think of as real. So in our minds, we all have different voices that sort of speak to us and guide us and influence us in one way or another. But there's typically one voice that we think of as ourselves. It is the sort of the intentional voice where we could say the words out loud and they would happen. That's the voice that this is. It's the voice that is fully cognitive and is in theory in control of himself. And then this other voice is one that influences him. Although bear in mind again, the other Ren also said that he should be the shepherd, which means that this place as the Ren Prime is not necessarily something that all these Rens agree on.
Since my therapist told me I'm ill, and I've been taking some time to be by myself since my therapist told me I'm ill, and I've been making some progress lately, and I've learned some new coping skills. So I haven't really needed you much, man. I think we need to just step back and chill.
Okay, so we're seeing this again where he is quite defensive, and he is quite aggressive. You can see that there is some fear in him that is directed toward other Ren, evil Ren. You can also you hear him say that his doctor told him he's ill. So Ren is British, and I don't know if ill has a more specific connotation there. So to me, I was wondering, does he mean mentally or physically? He's wearing a hospital gown. By the way, I mean, now I know that it was kind of both, just because of his whole sort of journey with Lyme disease and everything. But then he talks about coping skills, which are definitely are strongly associated with mental illnesses.
Ren, you sound more insane than I do. You think that those doctors are really there to guide you? Been through this a million times. Your civilian mind is so perfect, they're always being lied to.
Okay, so now we have evil Ren again. It's interesting because his voice is so grating, but I always am happy to see him. I think he's so entertaining. He has such a character. And this is the verse where that happens to me. The first verse, the first time I saw this, I thought, I don't know if I can listen to an entire song of this character. But the second song is where I started to like him. And the reason is because the first thing he says is, "You sound more insane than I do." So there's this recognition that, like, I am not a well adjusted voice. I am not. It's like he says that he's supposed to be the shepherd in the beginning, but he doesn't have a shepherd mentality. He has sort of like burn it all to the ground mentality. So he says, "You sound more insane than I do. You think these doctors are really there to guide you." Okay, so he's already kind of sowing doubt in the efficacy and intentions of these doctors. And I don't remember how far I got, so let me back up a second
Okay.
and make sure I don't skip ahead.
Guide, you've been through this a million times. Your civilian mind is so perfect, to always being lied to. Okay, take another pill, boy. Drown yourself in the sound of white noise. Follow this 10-step program, rejoice. All your problems will be gone. Fucking dumb boy.
Okay, so you hear this sing-song voice enter, or him using this sing-song voice. Follow this 10-step program, rejoice. Drown yourself in the sound of white noise. I know those are opposite. Take another pill, boy. Apparently, I'm doing this section in reverse. So these are the lies that he's being told, right? He says, "You've been through this a million times. Your civilian mind is so perfect at always being lied to." And now this is a bullet point list of all of the lies he's told. Just take another pill. It'll be better. Just drown yourself in the sound of white noise. I think that's really more like a symptom of the pill. That is that's sort of a metaphor there. I'll follow this 10-step program. That's sort of especially the rejoice at the end. So the rejoice is sort of a religious call out. So what I think there is Alcoholics Anonymous. So you have the 10-step program with a lot of religious associations. And so that talks to me about addiction and some other things. But I think the overall sense of it is that you are being brainwashed. There is this series of steps that they are providing you, and the purpose of the steps is not to cure you or make you better. It is to distract you. It is the white noise that you are lost in. And the white noise is not to take away your pain or to bring you to a better place. It is to give you the illusion of progress so that you stop bothering the doctors and so that you go away. And then he says, all your problems will be gone. And it is the reason I think that is such a painful thing for Center Ren to hear is that he so desperately wants all the problems to be gone. He wants the pain to not be there. It's clear that this is something that is like whatever is going on with him is deeply painful and deeply enduring. And there is an effect that pain has on you that goes well beyond immediate pain. A pain like, if you pinch yourself on the arm, it's not a big deal. But imagine pinches like that all the time for years. That becomes a very different, fundamentally type of pain. Chronic pain, whether emotional or mental or physical, it takes on a different character. And so I think when he sort of gives this false echo of the promise that all those problems will be gone, that strikes deeper than might originally be obvious or might be obviously apparent.
White noise, follow this 10-step program, rejoice, all your problems will be gone. Fucking dumb boy.
You can see how aggressive he is when he says that. He's not just putting Center Ren down. He is castigating him. He is mocking him viciously. He wants Middle Ren to hurt. And it seems like the overwhelming purpose of that is to undercut the efficacy of the doctors and other influences in Center Ren's life that are ostensibly attempting to helping him to improve.
White noise, follow this 10-step program. Rejoice, all your problems will be gone. Fucking dumb boy. Nah, mate, this time is different, man. Trust me. I feel like things might be falling in place, and my music's been kinda doing bits too. Like I.
Okay, so it's so interesting to watch how exactly we switch back to Center Ren and what he looks like. He says it's different, man. Trust me, but his body posture, like the way that he speaks and the way he moves his head and the way he moves his body, are not consistent with the words that he's saying. So if we watch this here,
I feel like things might be falling in place.
see how he moves? He leans forward there. He is trying to convince someone, and the someone is himself. He's not trying to convince other Ren. Evil Ren cannot be convinced. He is unconvincible, and I think Center Ren knows that. So I think the someone is very much him trying to convince that it's different this time. And he says things might be falling in place.
And my music's been kinda doing bits too. Like I actually might do something great.
Okay, so this is the first time that he sort of identifies that this is, I'm sure there's a correct word for this, but this is sort of autobiographical, that he is singing about himself, probably, because he's a musician and he's talking about, playing music, and that his music is starting to succeed. Which, by the way, doing bits is not something I had been familiar with before, but I like it. I think it's kind of charming. Like I might actually do something great, which is interesting. It sounds like the concept of a legacy, of leaving something behind, is a hope that he clings to. To me, that speaks to the dissatisfaction that he feels in his life. I think biologically we're all programmed to value the idea of a legacy in one way or another. But I think the focus on legacy is most pronounced when we've given up a little bit on happiness in the present, happiness in our lives. I think the idea that there is no real recovery here, there is no finding joy in the here and now. All there is getting to a place that's good enough and then leaving a legacy that is meaningful. I'm not going to call that hopeless, but I do think that it is a concession. I'm not saying it's a bad concession or a wrong concession, just that it is a concession. To me, it speaks of someone who has given up a lot of ground in this argument already.
And when I'm gone, maybe I'll be remembered for doing something special with myself. That's why I don't think that we should talk, man. Because when you're with me, it never seems to help.
Hear his voice breaking. It's like he's telling an old friend that they can't hang out anymore. He's extremely defensive still, and it sounds like they have a long history together. And there's some indication, you can hear, even though his tone and his voice are not optimistic, his words are optimistic. And so in a way you can see how Evil Ren is necessary. So when we have a constant voice of optimism inside ourselves, I think that always necessitates a counterpoint. There always needs to be a voice of caution within us that says, oh, well, what if it doesn't go well? What if this person isn't trustworthy? What if this doesn't work out the way that we think it will? And that's a pure survival mechanic, right? Your brain is always preparing for a disaster in some form or another. Some people more than others, but everybody has to do that. If you don't do that, bad things will happen to you. You will be extremely gullible, and bad things will happen to you all the time until you learn that lesson. So we have this. We're starting to understand the role that Evil Ren might take that isn't actually evil, that actually is a necessary component. And that brings into question, okay, how literal is this separation of Ren and Ren? Is this an actual manifestation of psychosis, or is this purely metaphorical? Is this purely him saying like, I no longer want to dwell in this place of distrust and pessimism. I want to trust. I want to hope. I want to move toward a better future with myself, and just believe that that can happen, and sort of hope that that belief manifests that future.
With myself. That's why I don't think that we should talk, man. Cause when you're with me, it never seems to help. You think that you can amputate me, I am you, you are me, you are.
Here's a really cool little. By the way, I love how sort of violent that transition is, almost as if he's ripping away control from Center Ren. But one little detail that I really love here.
Cause when you're with me, it never seems to help.
Right
you think
here.
that you can amputate me, I am you,
Right
you
there. Did you see how when he shifted over, he shifts his guitar over and then he moves the strap so that he can point. That I think means that he has practiced this enough times to know that if he turns and doesn't adjust the guitar strap, that he can't do this motion naturally, that it will get in the way. And it's just like one of those little details that tells you like the sort of like the one take nature of it makes it feel very, like, oh, we just, we rented this room, we went there, we recorded for half an hour, and then we left. But no, this has been rehearsed an enormous number of times, and all of these details, all of these body motions, all of the, plucking the guitar strings differently depending on what part of the song is, what sort of character he's embodying, his posture, his head position, his inflections in his voice, the amount of grit he's adding, the expansiveness of his like hand gestures. All of those things are very much, I don't want to say choreographed. Much of it is choreographed, but much of it is just sort of, embodying this persona. But that persona has been practiced ad nauseum. Okay, going back to it.
Should talk, man. Cause when you're with me, it never seems to help. You think that you can amputate me, I am you, you are me, you are I am we are one. Split in two, that makes one. So you see, you gotta kill you if you wanna kill me. I'm not left on.
Okay, so I think this hits on one of the heaviest topics here, which is he's talking about how, Ren was saying, I don't think we should talk anymore. When I'm with you, you never seem to help. And now, evil Ren, a term which is starting to feel less and less useful, he's saying, we are the same person. You can't get rid of me. If you want to get rid of me, you have to kill yourself. You can't kill just one of us. And that is very, very true. So I am, personally, I'm neurodivergent. I'm 11 out of 10 ADHD. And a lot of my early struggles centered around wanting to suppress elements of myself. And I learned that you cannot suppress a negative thing within you in isolation. What happens is that you end up suppressing a section of you which contains good and bad or helpful and unhelpful pieces of you. You can't do just one. And so what he's saying, even though he's saying it mockingly and he's sort of saying it as an attack, he's also not wrong. And so once again, this emphasizes that this is not good and evil Ren, right? This is Ren as he sees his own voice, and Ren, sort of the element of his subconscious that is trying to protect himself from being hurt. And that goes back to what I thought originally, which is that he represented trauma. He doesn't represent trauma. He represents the attempt to avoid trauma. He represents a trauma response.
Over dinner, I'm not scraps on the side. Oh, your music is thriving. Delusional guy, where's your top 10 hit? Where's your interview with Oprah? Wow, your Grammys ran nowhere. Yeah.
Okay, so this is also really interesting that all of the things that he's talking about are he really focuses in on the idea that, my music's been doing bits too, right? He says, oh, it's thriving, you're delusional. You don't have any top 10 hits, you don't have interviews with Oprah, you don't have Grammys. the reason that he's singling those things out is because those are things that Ren really thinks about. Presumably, the actual Ren thinks about those things. And there's often there are things that we say to ourselves like, this is not important to me. But in a way, they do have a little bit of power over us. So one that you will hear all the time is, "Oh, I don't care what people think." I have rarely heard person say, "I don't care what people think," who doesn't care what people think. The reality is that when a person doesn't care what people think, usually they are just not making concessions to the hurt that they feel when people disapprove of them or mock them or whatever. And so Ren has made a perfect or an intentional decision not to seek after radio play and all these other accolades and sort of external cues of success, but not getting them does have an impact on him. And so in a way, he is sort of lying to himself, when he talks about not needing or wanting those things. That's not always a bad thing. Sometimes expressions like that can be sort of aspirational. The person that I want to be is one that doesn't seek after, those things. But to deny their power over you entirely is sort of to turn a blind eye to who you actually are and what your motivations are. And I think one of the impacts here doing that is that it forces that element of his subconscious into this persona that represents the things that that Ren is sort of suppressing.
Yeah, but my music's not commercial like that. I never chase numbers, statistics or stats. I never write hooks for the radio, they never even play me, so why would I concern myself with that?
Okay, so here he's saying a lot of those things. You'll also see that his the way that he's saying the words is subverting them. So right here,
So stats. I never write hooks for the radio, they never even play me, so why would I concern myself with that?
Do you see how his knee comes up? Right now it's out of frame, but just a second ago it came up into frame. Ren doesn't believe what he's saying. He believed what he was saying before to varying degrees, that he never chases numbers, statistics, or stats. But when he says, why would I concern myself with that? He lifts his knee up, his posture closes in, his face scrunches up. He is physically embodying that this is a thing that he is trying to, they are words that he's trying to force into reality. And they are either not reality or not yet reality, which again is okay. It's an aspirational statement, etc. But it does mean that he is actively suppressing part of himself. And doing that does have implications and consequences.
But my music is really connecting, and the people who find it respect it. And for me that's enough, cause this life's been tough, so it gives me a purpose I can rest in.
Preach.
Respect it. And for me that's enough, cause this life's been tough, so it gives me a purpose I can rest in. Man, you sound so pretentious. Ren, your music is so self-centered. No one wants to hear another song about how much you hate yourself. Trust me.
Okay, so he starts this verse so rhythmically. He hits those beats so intentionally. The way that he's hitting those chords, he's adding additional rhythm to it. You remember his, Evil Ren's last verse, he kind of ripped control away. This is not like that. This is him pausing because he knows he has power. He knows that Center Ren has extended himself too far. He has made assertions that he himself does not believe, and he is thereby attackable, right? And so he really takes time and creates lots of space between the beats to emphasize his point.
Music is so self-centered. No one wants to hear another song about how much you hate yourself. Trust me.
Feel how he breaks that rhythm to say, he says, no one wants to hear another song about how much you hate yourself. Trust me. He breaks rhythm to say, trust me. he does that just to let that sink in, just to reduce all of the value of Ren's music, all of this like monumental effort of heart and will and mind that Ren has sunk himself into, that represents the legacy that he feels like is the, the one hope for him, the one sort of shining beacon that maybe he can, there will be something to be remembered, something special from him. And he reduces it to just another song about how much he hates himself. No one wants that. No one wants the thing that you find most precious within yourself. No one wants it. It is useless, valueless. And it's it's easy to think of that as an evil thing to say. Certainly it would be if someone other than Ren was saying that to Ren. But from this Ren, from this defensive Ren, this protection Ren, this subconscious trying to prevent additional trauma, this is just the worst fear being spoken. That the thing in myself that I find most valuable is useless, and no one will ever love it. No one will ever love me. And if someone does love me, it will be for bullshit reasons that I don't care about. That is not something that he said. I think that just sort of like comes with the territory when I think about those thoughts.
You should be so lucky, having me inside you to guide you, remind you to manage expectations, provide you perspective. That thing you neglected, I get it. You wanna be a big deal, next Jimi Hendrix, forget it. Man, it's not.
Okay, so here he's just sort of like, he's just driving it home, right? He's just reiterating the same ideas. You think that you can be the next Jimi Hendrix, but that is just your lack of perspective. That is just, this is just your like head in the clouds, imagining this like, it's just a delusion of grandeur that you are indulging.
Thing you neglected, I get it. You wanna be a big deal, next Jimi Hendrix, forget it. Man, it's not like that. Man, it's just like that. I'm inside you, you twat. No.
Okay, so now the dynamic has shifted, right? So we talked earlier about how Center Ren had gone too far. He had pushed forward too far in his assertions, such that he was saying something that he did not even believe, even with his doubt and self-hatred, self-doubt, second guessing. Even with all of that suppressed into a second persona, there's enough bleed of that into his kind of conscious persona that when he made the assertion that that like he could have a legacy that would be great, he became very vulnerable, and so Ren was on the attack, right? And Ren, Center or Evil Ren has been on the attack for a little while now, and now things have sort of broken. Center Ren has toppled. He is now entirely on the defensive. All he can say is, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Oh, it's not, man, you're wrong. When I write, I belong. Let me break the fourth wall by acknowledging this.
Listen to that and tell me if it's the voice of a person who believes what they're saying.
I'm inside you, you twat. No, it's not, man, you're wrong. When I write, I belong. Let me break the fourth wall.
Not so much, right? Okay, so what happens next? We're looking for our Evil Ren. Again, I'm just going to keep using that term because it's easier. Evil Ren is looking for a knockout blow, right? If we're thinking about this as a fight, we're looking for a knockout blow. So this is his
just like that, I'm inside you, you twat. No, it's not, man, you're wrong. When I write, I belong. Let me break the fourth wall by acknowledging this song. Ren sits down, has a stroke of genius. He wants to write a song that was not done previous. A battle with his subconscious. Eminem did it. Played on guitar. Plan B did it.
See how small and vulnerable Center Ren feels by this point? There is no sense, there's no hope anymore, even in this conflict. It's just an attempt at trying to claw back some piece of what he was hoping. But this is spiraling, right?
Not done previous, a battle with the subconscious. Eminem did it.
Oh, and one more thing. As he goes into that, you see that rhythm again, just like he did before. Evil Ren has a lot of space in between his rhythm. And he's doing that because he is confident that that what he's saying is effective and is getting to center run. So he is leaving plenty of space to let the words sink in and sink home.
It played on guitar. Plan B did it. Man, you're not original, you criminal rip-off artist. The pinnacle of your success is stealing other people's material. Ren, mate, we've heard it all before. She sells seashells on the seashore.
Okay, so first of all, that is brutal, and it hits hard both emotionally and also just shows off some of his skill. And I think it also is. It also acts as sort of a nod back to the Eminem. I actually haven't heard the Plan B song that he references, so there are probably lots of influences there that I haven't heard as well. But you hear a lot of echoes from Eminem's discography, I guess, in how he presents this particular attack.
Other people's material. Ren, mate, we've heard it all before. She sells seashells on the seashore. Fuck you. I don't need you. I don't need to hear this.
Okay, so at the beginning, maybe there was like some tendril of hope that center Ren was protagonist Ren, but now his only response is "fuck you." Right? He's no longer. There's no like logic in it. There's no. He's shut down. Like emotionally, he's shut down. There is no longer any cognitive processes or emotional coping skills that are helping him through this moment. There's just fight or flight. Right. All he has left is fear, and a decision to either give in, or to strike back in some way.
She sells seashells on the seashore. Fuck you. I don't need you. I don't need to hear this. Cause I'm fine by myself. I'm a genius.
See how he shakes his head like that? Like he's overextending now. Not only does he not fully believe what he's saying, he would laugh at himself if he heard him say it at any other time. Personally, I'm inclined to think that Ren kind of is a low-key genius, but there aren't a lot of people who can say I'm a genius and really are and believe it. That is an unusual Venn diagram to be in the center of. And so what he's doing here is he's so off balance that he is overextending in his arguments and in many ways is hurting his own case. He is making it more difficult to stay centered and keep from losing his place as the shepherd. So I think what we're seeing here is the attempted takeover, I guess, the desire of the defense mechanism to become the guiding influence on Ren's life, to become the shepherd, while the hopeful Ren becomes the sheep.
Fuck you. I don't need you. I don't need to hear this. Cause I'm fine by myself. I'm a genius. And I will be great. And I will make waves. And I'll shake up the whole world beneath us. That's right. Speak your truth. Your fucking God complex leaks out of you.
Okay, so having overextended, now that is attacked immediately. And you can see, once again, when Evil Ren is confident, he leaves lots of space between his rhythms. He creates lots of air. He leaves lots of space. He speaks really, really clearly. Like he wants these hurtful words to sink in. And again, he's not actually evil, right? He just wants to make sure that the Ren, who is himself, is protected. He wants to make sure that this hope and this trust does not destroy him. And so the brain it's really amazing. It can do a lot of great things. It's not always the best at identifying what is a threat and what isn't. This like mental immune system, just like the physical immune system, often becomes hyper attuned to certain aggression or certain circumstances. And just like a person can die from their own allergies or from an allergic reaction to medication or from your body becoming too, reacting too strongly to a common cold or something. In the same way, your mind can become utterly destroyed by your reaction to pain and the fear of pain.
Or shake up the whole world beneath us. That's right, speak your truth, your fucking God complex leaks out of you. It's refreshing to actually hear you say it instead of downplay it. Music is all about the creative process, and if people can find something to relate to within that, then that's just a bonus.
So, also really interesting, now the point has been proven, right? There is no longer any, he no longer needs to make the points that he was making before. They have been made, they were effective. So now he is eroding the points that were underneath them, the further down barriers and arguments that sort of are at the center of center Ren's self-image and self-confidence. So one of them is this idea that the purpose of music for him is for himself. Fundamentally, it is to realize something within him, to create art for the sake of creating art, to express something, to release something, and at least from Evil Ren's perspective, that is an all-out lie, which is why he mockingly says, etc. If other people can find something within that, then that's just a bonus. But that's bullshit, at least from Evil Ren's perspective. It is those external accolades that Evil Ren is saying really matters to Center Ren. And because Center Ren has been suppressing the need for external accolades, this is an effective attempt. If Center Ren had accepted that external affirmation was valuable to him, this wouldn't be a sore point. But he hasn't really. He hasn't accepted that part of him. And so this is a targetable thing for him. And I get that. This is a lie that I tell myself too, not about music necessarily, but about art and about things that I do where I want to say, like, I do this for me. But the truth is external affirmation really does matter a lot to me. And it really does impact how I see myself.
Fuck you, I'ma fucking kill you, Ren. Well, fucking kill me then, let's fucking have you, Ren. I'ma do it, watch me prove it. Who are you to doubt my music? Cause I call the shots, I choose if you die. Yeah, I call the shots and so I choose who survives.
Okay, so now someone who was the only one that was in the running for protagonist is saying, if you don't shut up, I'll just kill you. Which is interesting because it was already brought up that you can't kill one without killing the other. So to me, this is him contemplating suicide. I don't know how like front of mind that is, how conscious that is for Center Ren. Maybe very, I don't know. But that is what he's contemplating here, I believe. And I've understood most of his head positions and facial expressions and his posture up until now. But when he falls down, when he says, I choose who dies, I choose who survives, he brings his head down and he speaks very quietly and enunciates less forcefully. I don't know exactly what that means. It might just be like a mannerism that I'm just not familiar with. I've just never met anyone who used that mannerism. But it's definitely de-emphasized. And the only interpretation that I can think of for that is that moment, that like de-emphasis, is his recognition that he cannot do what he's saying he cannot kill that Ren without killing himself. So that's my only clue that maybe he really is conscious that suicide is what he's considering.
I'll tie you up in knots when I lock you inside.
I'll tie you up in knots when I lock you inside. So this is why I think this is why I'm still not sure that suicide is really what he's consciously contemplating, because tying you up in knots feels more like I'm going to suppress just you and I'm going to leave the parts of me that I want left over, which is, suicide is obviously not going to do that. This may also be, it's not like when you're in a moment like this, when you're in a moment of crisis, you're thinking entirely clearly, or that there's always exactly one game plan. So it's possible that this is also sort of a separate threat. So threat one is I choose who lives and dies, I can kill you, which is killing himself too. And threat two is I am the shepherd for now. I am the one that controls my actions. I can tie you up, right? So what happens next is he moves his face in all sorts of weird demonic ways, and I think this sort of harkens to all the like Exorcist type movies where their head goes all over the place and they make weird sounds that are scary, and it indicates some sort of like a demonic possession of some kind, and this is maybe the most aggressive takeover of Ren that we've seen, where evil Ren says, "Okay, for the moment at least, you are mine, and I will speak with my voice now."
Choose who survives. I'll tie you up in knots when I lock you inside. Newsflash. I was created at the dawn of creation.
Lots of space.
I am temptation. I am the snake in Eden. I am the reason for treason. Beheading all kings. I am sin with no rhyme or reason. Son of the morning, Lucifer anti.
So this voice is, I'm sorry for all the pausing. This would drive me crazy. So this way that he's speaking now is the most of aggressive that he's been so far, and it also doesn't really sound like it really doesn't sound like the first character, the evil Ren. It sounds as much like that character as evil Ren sounds like Center Ren. It's like a distillation. Like this character feels different to me, and I can't tell if it is just like fully activated, entirely confident evil Ren, or if it's actually intended as a separate character. Because I already know the song, I tend to believe that it is the same evil Ren, and just an aspect of it. But it does feel like a different, at least representation of this persona to me.
No kings, I am sin, with no rhyme or reason. Son of the morning, Lucifer, Antichrist, father of lies. Mephistopheles, truth in a blender, deceitful pretender, the banished avenger, the righteous surrender when standing in front of my solar eclipse. My name is stitched to your lips, so you see, I won't bow to the will of a mortal.
Okay, so musically we have a lot going on here. So he starts out with all that space between his rhythms, and he also has like a lot of percussion. As he sort of like accelerates this, he goes into triplets, which always give it sort of a sense of running or a sense of movement to the rhythm. And then he's doing these chromatic descended chords down the guitar. That's
Polar eclipse. My name is stitched to your lips, so you.
Yeah, they're all chromatic, which means all of the notes of the chords are a half step away from each other. That's really dissonant and really like unpleasant to the ear. A lot of that time, that's associated with evil or demonic things, and you do hear that a lot in rock and metal. Also, the things that he's saying at first, he was talking about Lucifer, Antichrist, Mephistopheles, but now he's getting or towards the end of that, he gets a lot more poetic, I guess. Or grandiose, almost. And that's interesting, because isn't that what happened to Center Ren? Didn't Center Ren start saying reasonable things, kind of, and then sort of ascend toward grandiose statements that were like ultimately unsupportable? And isn't that what evil Ren is doing now?
Just surrender when standing in front of my solar eclipse. My name is stitched to your lips, so you see, I won't bow to the will of a mortal. Feeble and normal, you wanna kill me? I'm eternal immortal. I live in every decision that catalyzes chaos, that causes division. I live inside death, the beginning of ends. I am you, you are me, I am you, friend.
Okay. So this is an interesting way to end this series of lyrics. He says, I live in every decision that catalyzes chaos. I live in death, the beginning of ends. I am you, you are me. I am you, Ren. That's a weird third thought in that set of thoughts. So I'm reading a fantasy book right now by Brandon Sanderson. I think it's called the Lost Metal. It's the last in the Metalborn series, and they live on a world that is that was ruled by two gods: ruin and preservation. The tendency, I think of it more as entropy and enthalpy. The tendency for like inertia, for things to stay the same, and the tendency for things to break down over time. And it's that balance that produces life and also creates death. In order for things to live, things must always die. Your cells must continually die and change. You are not the same being as you were a few years ago. Almost all of your cells have been replaced with different ones. And so, in a sense, what he's saying, the idea that death is part of our lives, destruction is part of our lives, deceit is innate in humanity, and even like there's a ton of religious symbolism and imagery that's sort of embedded in this section, which I guess you have to if you start out by calling yourself Lucifer Antichrist, but you could even take it as sort of a quasi-religious statement that that like Satan is within us. Like Satan is not a creature that does things to us. Satan is an embodiment of the tendency to destroy within ourselves. I don't know that he's making that case here. I've listened to his other music, and he sounds like he might actually be religious or like religious adjacent, I guess. I'm not really sure. But to me, the words that he's saying poetically, you can almost call reasonable. But in the context that he's saying them, he has flown completely off the rails. Like, he's no longer saying sensical things. He's no longer speaking to Center Ren. He is just on an ego trip. And so that makes me wonder, okay, like, now that this part of your brain that is being self-defensive is no longer defending you, what happens? What does that mean? A lot of dissonance there. Less dissonance. Back to those very like calming chords. When I hear this, I have a visceral reaction. There's like an inhale of breath. I feel something like below my sternum. Man, I wish I had actually looked at this before, but like I feel like this must be the same chord that he starts with after the falsetto section. But it hits me different. It must be just like how intense the section is before. I don't know if he's playing it differently. I don't know. But it has like an effect within me, just the resonance of it and like the depth of those notes, and the way of like how gently he's playing them. Like there's no plucking, there's nothing aggressive about it. And after this like hyper aggression, where it's like the end of or like some portion of a movie or some episode of TV where it's like, you know, the protagonist, the last thing you saw was them like bleeding on the rocks or something, and then like, okay, like, are they okay? And so we had sort of this meltdown, and now we have this, and this is our new scene. This is where we find out what happened. No vibrato on that note.
Hi, Ren. I've been taking some time to be distant.
Only a
I've been
bass line.
taking some time to be still. I've been taking some time to be by myself, and I've spent half my life ill.
Hear the timbre of the voice here? This is no longer defensive, right? This is First of all, he's only over the bass note. It's extremely simple. The pitch of his voice is lower. There is there are fewer breaks in his voice. So naturally, when you speak, your voice will sort of flip between different registers. And there is almost none of that here. He is deep in his chest voice. The voice is very calm. He is saying everything he's saying is it's true. Everything he's saying is true, in an unattackable way. And the way that he's saying it has no sense of defensiveness. His posture is open. His head is down, but his head is not down in a tense way. His head is down because the weight of what he's saying is high. It's heavy. The fact that he has spent half his life ill has just felt like an eternity.
I've been taking some time to be by myself, and I've spent half my life ill. But just as sure as the tide starts turning, just as sure as the night has dawned, just as sure.
See the way that it looks up there? I won't talk too much about camera work. Again, I'm no expert, but as his gaze moves up, the camera is right at eye level, so his hair kind of moves out of the way, and that's the look that you get when when someone has taken a punch and they go down again, like in a movie or something, and then they look up and they're like, oh, I'm really gonna fight now. So there's a sense of of reinvigoration here. We also hear a little bit of symbolism going along in the music here, where the first section is only the bass notes, and those bass notes are accompanied by him saying things that are true but quite depressing, or at least potentially depressing. And as he then adds additional higher notes to that, he begins speaking words of hope. And so we can see how the music and the words are sort of reinforcing the evolution of these statements.
Just as sure as the tide starts turning, just as sure as the night has dawned, just as sure as the rainfall soon runs dry when you stand in an eye of a storm. I was made to be tested and twisted. I was made to be broken and beat. I was made by his hand, it's all part of his plan that I stand on my own 2 feet.
This is a really powerful moment, I think. As he talks about this, I think this is when this song started to mean more to me than just like a really cool song. So he talks about the first thing he talks about is as sure as the tide turns, as soon as the rainfall runs dry, when you stand in the eye of a storm. Those are interesting to me and are worth further exploration, but I didn't have any strong visceral reaction to those. But what he said next is, I was made to be tested and twisted. I was made to be broken and beat. And I think that's a thing that typically would sound hopeless to me. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I am, just a punching bag for life. But that's not how he's saying it here. What he's saying here is, I am equipped for this. I was constructed to take this pain, and the things in me that are valuable and good are made to withstand those attacks, I guess. More religious imagery, as he says, I was made by his hand. It's all part of his plan, that I stand on my own 2 feet. And again, I feel like it's almost quasi-religious, because I think a lot of the things that he says are sort of the religious adjacent. I don't know that he's speaking them explicitly as religious, or at least not as Christian per se. But it certainly uses the same words and imagery of Christianity.
Beat. I was made by his hand, it's all part of his plan that I stand on my own 2 feet. And you know.
Oh, yes, and about him standing on his own 2 feet, that is directly connected to the idea of being made to be tested, twisted, broken, beat. The idea is I was made to support myself under the weight of this pressure. And so that adversity is almost what creates, I guess I'm speaking beyond what the lyrics say here, but standing on his own 2 feet is part of what he was constructed to do.
I was made by his hand, it's all part of his plan that I stand on my own 2 feet. And you know me, my will is eternal. And you know me, you've met me before. Face to face with a beast, I will rise from the east and I'll settle on the ocean floor. And I go by many names also. Some people know me as hope. Some people know me as the voice that you hear when you loosen the noose on the rope. And you know how I know that I'll prosper? 'Cause I stand here beside you today. I have stood in the flames that cremated my brain, and I didn't once flinch or shake.
Okay, so he certainly had a different persona at the beginning of this verse. But my assumption was that it was sort of a tempered center run. And this is where it's clear that this is a third persona. He says, some people know me as Hope. So he's giving himself sort of a name. You know, the evil Ren called himself Lucifer, Antichrist, Mephistopheles, etc., right? And this persona is calling himself Hope, the voice that you hear when you loosen the noose on the rope. I think that one of the dangers of forcing optimism and suppressing pessimism is that in some ways it silences the voice of optimism. In some ways, the co-opting things that you don't fully believe and trying to force them to become part of your, part of your psyche, it can sort of suppress their ability to speak good words to you. Sometimes, if you are denying part of yourself to do it, because denying that part of yourself sort of amplifies its voice. That voice will build up in power, as we saw with the protective evil Ren. And to me, it feels like evil Ren, which has now gone off the rails, right, is now this grandiose, exaggerated version of it or himself, has created enough distance between itself and Center Ren that it has given Hope an opportunity to speak. And so I think that's why we hear it speak now. And so as he's talking about his identity, I think it's almost not important who exactly he is. We spent a lot of time exploring who Evil Ren was, what exactly he was. I don't think it's as important what this new Ren is exactly. We just know that it exists somewhere else on the spectrum, and that it speaks words of hope and optimism. And sometimes knowing that exists is a lot of the battle. Sometimes knowing that there are positive things within yourself that have things to offer you, is more important than the exact nature of them. Sort of like when a person mocks you viciously, their words are what cut you, right? The exact words that they use. But when you're in desperate need of comfort, often no words are needed at all. Sometimes it's just a person who sits next to you that makes all of the difference. I think the nature of hope and reassurance is that it is the act of compassion and connection that is the healing element, not the cognitive elements that construct or deconstruct something within you.
I have stood in the flames that cremated my brain, and I didn't once flinch or shake. I have stood in the flames that cremated my brain, and I didn't once flinch or shake.
Okay, I messed up there because one of my favorite lines I just sort of like skipped over. Sorry.
Bro, and you know how I know that I'll prosper? Cause I stand here beside you today. I have stood in the flames that cremated my brain, and I didn't once flinch or shake.
So I really love that. Do you know how I know that I'll prosper? Because I stand before you today. This is how I know that I'll be okay, because this is something that I've endured before. This is something, all of my successes come in spite of this. And I'm not getting worse at handling myself, right? I am not less capable than I was 5 years ago or 2 years ago or 1 year ago, right? These are the same things that I've always struggled with, and I am only getting better at managing them, at achieving my goals, you know. I want to say in spite of those struggles, but maybe that's the wrong term. But he's saying that I know that I'll prosper because I've done this before and I'm still here. I've still done it and I can do it again. He says, I've stood in the flames that cremated my brain. I assume that he's talking about his physical and mental illnesses here. Those are the metaphorical flames that cremated his brain. That imagery there, I feel like it means something additional to him that I don't grasp. But generally, these are the afflictions. And he's saying that he didn't once flinch or shake. That line always strikes me as a little incongruent. And again, maybe there's some meaning beyond what I understand here. Boy, I have flinched and I have shaken in the face of what I have seen in my life, and he has been through a hell of a lot more than I have. So, but in terms of the statement that my optimism is based on the fact that I am still here. I've done this before. I can get through it more, and I will continue to do better, and to be better. I think that that's a powerful thing to remember, that this too shall pass, that every moment of your life is not eternal. As humans, it's inevitable that every moment feels like we always feel like the way that we feel will be how it feels forever. Or rather, and this is the voice of the protective, defensive part of our brain, that if it's good, it will be fleeting, and if it's bad, it will last forever. But that's not how it is. Life is a combination of countless cycles, and those cycles sometimes reinforce each other, and they sometimes cancel out each other, and they sometimes drive us to new lows. But those cycles do come back around again. And knowing that a lot of times is the hope that we need to endure really hard times.
So coward the man I've become when I sing from the top of my lungs that I won't retire, I'll stand in your fire, inspire that me to be strong. And when I am gone I will rise in the music that I left behind. Ferocious, persistent, immortal like you, we're a coimented different side.
I choose to believe that the part that's singing here is back to Senna Ren, who has now internalized this message of hope. And so when he's singing, he says, "Coward the man I've become." This, by the way, was one of the most difficult sections for me to understand the lyrics of. But he says, so coward the man I become when I sing it from the top of my lungs that I won't retire. I'll stand in your fire, inspire the weak to be strong. So you hear this being a core value to him, that he wants the strength that he shows in the face of this struggle to be an inspiration to other people. And the way that he can do that is through his music. So uh, you can see how before, when Senator Wren was talking, he was saying, "Oh, the music is for me. I don't care what other people find within it," and that was a vulnerability for him because it wasn't true, and so evil slash defensive Wren sort of was able to hone in on that and attack it. But now he's saying, "It is my goal to take the struggle that I experience and and my strength that I show in the face of that, I want to inspire other people with that." And that is a truth. That is a statement of the desire for an acknowledgement of the value of external validation. Um, Maybe not explicitly, but sort of. But at least the notion that other people getting something from what he's doing is important and it is a central goal. And I think acknowledging that is critical both to just him understanding himself better, to not trapping himself inside like kind of a web of lies we tell ourselves, and also to shaping his art in a way where he can actually achieve that goal. And then at the end, this is the reason that I think that this is Senna Ren speaking again. He says, ferocious, persistent, immortal like you, were a coin with two different sides. So you could view this as Hope speaking to Evil Ren, but I choose to hear the we, we're a coin, the we, as all three of them, saying, this is a coin, I am the coin, and there are two different sides of me. So there is me, Senator Ren, and then there's Hope, and there is evil, defensive Ren. And again, that term there is now breaking down because the notion of like trauma defense is not evil, but understanding that your mental immune reaction is not healthy, and that you need a counterbalance to that, which is like hope and optimism, and not allowing one to grow too strong, not letting your hope and optimism grow so strong that you're reckless, and not allowing your trauma response to grow so strong that you sort of cave in within yourself and cut yourself off from everything. I think that's an incredibly delicate balance, and one that I think he sort of symbolizes really eloquently here. He doesn't actually smile during that section, but there's something very joyous about it. The way he sings it feels very joyous to me. Even like he lifts up his leg at one point as he's singing it, just sort of like drowning himself in the music and the joy of playing and singing, sort of with abandon. And I think one of the most freeing things in life is being able to experience something that you love with abandon. And I think all of this bullshit that we experience in our lives, all of the trauma and all of the struggle, a lot of times it can get in the way of our ability to just be present and enjoy something thoroughly and fully. And that's a spiral, right? When we stop being able to find unadulterated joy in our lives, it becomes more difficult to fight off the things in our lives that push us down. So I think it should be everyone's top priority to seek out joy, seek out their joy, and prioritize it. You know, it can't be a thing that comes second, third, fourth, fifth. It has to be prioritized in your life because in some ways everything else flows from that. That is a source of energy that you can then distribute to all of your other priorities. I think he's really patient with this transition here.
When I was 17 years old, I shouted out into an empty room, into a blank canvas, that I would defeat the forces of evil. And for the next 10 years of my life, I suffered the consequences, with autoimmunity, illness, and psychosis. As I got older, I realized there were no real winners and there were no real losers in psychological warfare, but there were victims and there were students.
So there are a couple of subversions here that I think are really important. So the first one is at the very first line. He says, not the first line, but the first section. He says, I shouted out to an empty room, into a blank canvas, that I would defeat the forces of evil. That's interesting, right? Didn't we just come from that like grandiose moment? So now he's like had his moment of like self-understanding and recognition, and now he's going to talk about defeating the forces of evil. Has he learned anything? And then immediately he subverts that by saying, and then for the next 10 years of my life, I suffered the consequences. When he was 17, he said that he would defeat the forces of evil. And then for the next 10 years, he suffered the consequences. Maybe he called evil Ren too. You know what I mean? Maybe he failed to understand the value of that portion of himself. And so he fought it tooth and nail rather than learning to make peace with it and understand the value that it brings, and learn to accept it and accept that help that his body is giving him without judging it or hating it.
It was warfare, but there were...
Okay, and then it happens right again. Sorry. I'll rewind a bit.
winners, and there were no... As I got older, I realized there were no real winners, and there were no real losers in psychological warfare. But there were victims, and there were students.
And there's the second subversion there. There are no real winners and no real losers in psychological warfare, but there are victims. Maybe the sentence stops there. Maybe there are victims. What is the counterpoint? What is the opposite of a victim? Like a warrior or a survivor or I don't know exactly, but I'll tell you what it's not. It's not student. Student and victim don't exist on two ends of the same spectrum, right? They represent two different paradigms of seeing the same situation. So what he's saying here is, I realized that there aren't winners and losers. There aren't there are just people that see themselves as victims who are beat down by psychological warfare and are slowly eroded into nothing. And then there are students, people who choose to learn from themselves and from psychological warfare, from the experience that they have with I don't want to say battling, with just contending with their own minds. With, you know, when I learn about myself, when I learn about the puzzle that is me, why I work the way that I do, why sometimes I struggle to be productive, why sometimes I can't remember things, why I almost always can't remember things. I have a choice to either see myself as a victim of those deficiencies or as a student of those truths, those uh, unjudged, uh, neutral truths. The fact that my brain is what it is. I think there is one of the truths that I have been trying to teach myself for years and years is that it's okay to be me right now as I am. There's nothing evil about being me. No matter what I think, no matter what I feel, there's nothing evil about how I feel, and there's nothing evil about what I think. Um, those things are just those are us. Um, the nature of evil is that it comes from what we do, and the nature of good is that it comes from what we do. All of our thoughts and feelings, those are those are just part of our experience, and it is okay to be ourselves in every moment that we are in, and there should never be any judgment of that. Um, and I think applying that to other people is difficult, but applying it to ourselves is much more difficult.
It wasn't David versus Goliath. It was a pendulum, eternally swaying from the dark to the light.
Okay, so this is not a pendulum, it's just a reframe, right? So it's not David versus Goliath. It's not him, small and weak, versus Goliath, his illness, his psychosis, his like all the struggles that he goes through, right? It is a pendulum, eternally swaying from the dark to the light. It is these cycles that are constantly repeating, sometimes reinforcing, sometimes canceling each other out, sometimes pushing to new lows. These cycles, this pendulum, this is the nature of existence, to go from one to the other. And it's okay to be there. Being in a bad place doesn't mean that you're bad or that you've done something bad. It just means that that's where you are, and it's okay to be there. And it won't last forever.
And the more intensely that the light shone, the darker the shadow it cast.
This one I don't understand fully. I think it resonates at a gut level, but I think when I try to cognitively analyze it, I sort of fall apart a little bit. I think one thing that I see there is that when you try to force something about yourself, when you try to force optimism, and this is sort of what happens to Ren in the song, right? He tries to force optimism. He tries to force himself to believe things that he doesn't really believe. And so what ends up happening is that it reinforces the part of him that feels like it needs to protect him, right? And it casts a longer and longer shadow that is deeper and darker. And so forcing yourself toward another part of the cycle will by nature it will just amplify the effect of that part of the cycle, the next time you're there. I can take that out of that, but it may mean more than that.
It was never really a battle for me to win. It was an eternal dance. And like a dance, the more rigid I became, the harder it got. The more I cursed my clumsy footsteps, the more I struggled.
I love that so much. It's an eternal dance. Like a dance, the more rigid I became, the harder it got. The more I cursed my clumsy footsteps, the more I struggled. I'm not much of a dancer, but I've danced enough to know that this is deeply true. If you are concentrating on the steps, it is really hard to dance very well. But I have done other things that require this same sort of mentality. Sports is like this. When you're trying to learn any new physical thing, when you're sort of hyper focused on what exactly to do with parts of your body, it's always very awkward and difficult to control. But when you lose that rigidity, when when you allow yourself to do what you know to do and not sort of interfere at every moment with your mentality, and fight against everything in you, uh, that those motions become easier and more fluid. That doesn't mean that it doesn't take practice. Um, that's sort of why I use that particular analogy. Uh, just because, just because, uh, just because forcing the motion makes things awkward, doesn't mean that the things that you need to do to to improve your coping skills and the way you live your life, it doesn't mean that those things don't take work. It just means that you can't live in a constant state of rigidity. Rigidity isn't the end state. Uh, Something that I used to tell myself is I just need discipline. I just need enough discipline. I just need to fit myself into the nice, neat columns and rows and boxes, right? And then it'll be okay. And while routine truly is a hugely influential thing for anyone with ADHD, um, the rigidity inherent in that mentality was actually really destructive, because every time that I failed to fit into those neat little boxes, I felt like I was losing. Um, and so, it does take effort, but uh, it also takes it takes trust, and it takes an ability to allow yourself to be yourself.
So I got older and I learned to relax and I learned to soften, and that dance got easier.
He learned to soften. I really like that choice of terms. Soften means partly just uh, sort of like releasing a little of that control, a little bit of that rigidity. Um, but for me, it also resonates in terms of uh, maybe letting go of some of the expectations that you have about what your life should look like. Like, what does success mean? What does it mean for you to be, functional and happy and successful? Uh, sometimes, sometimes I have taken my cues for what it looks like to be effective and successful and happy from things other than my knowledge of myself. And it ends up forcing me to try to be something that I just am not and that I can never be. And so I think this idea of softening um, is really powerful. Just the idea that we can relax our understanding too of what we need to be, and be gentler with ourselves, and more compassionate.
It is this eternal dance that separates human beings from angels, from demons, from gods. And I must not forget, we must not forget, that we are human beings.
I think that's an interesting place to close it. So this last section, it's this eternal dance that separates human beings from angels, from demons, from gods. Um, like this no longer feels like part of the lesson. It feels like a sort of a poetic conclusion. There is sort of this fantastic element to this story, an element where he's sort of representing angels and demons struggling over us. And so this sort of where the words before about learning to relax sort of concludes the practical, sort of like instructive element of it. This last section sort of concludes the fantastic narrative. And he says it separates us from being angels, from demons, and from gods, which I think is just a beautiful line. There is a part of me that wishes this song ended there. I think that is a really powerful way to end. It's this eternal dance that separates human beings from angels, from demons, from gods. Instead, he continues, and I must not forget, we must not forget. Feels a tiny bit preachy to me, but I get that he's saying, like, this song has been all about me, but like this is an us thing. That we are human beings. Now, poetically, that's a weak finish. You hear him say, that from angels, from demons, from gods. You feel this clear rhythmic emphasis, and you can hear that in his voice. When he says human beings at the end, there's actually a de-emphasis. There's a couple reasons for that. The biggest one is that human beings is 4 syllables long, but you already know what he's saying by the first syllable. And so in some ways, you say the first syllable, and then you're trapped for 3 syllables where no additional information is being given. So when he says that we are human beings, you can hear his voice dip down. I'm sorry to linger on this so long.
That we are human beings.
You can feel how the emphasis drops so significantly because what he's saying isn't new. He's not adding anything, and the words themselves, like the syllables themselves, are irrelevant. The last 3 syllables don't add anything additional. And so to me, that feels like a weak ending. So this could be a concession, but I do believe in sort of, I guess, using the most favorable textual analysis of poetry possible, favoring the author. So what I choose to believe is that when he's saying this, what he's saying is that we are human beings, meaning that like this is the first time that he explicitly talks about self-compassion. We are not angels. We are not perfect. We are not demons. We are not evil. We are not gods. We are not all-powerful. We are human beings, meaning that we are fallible, that we have elements of good and evil, that we have the capacity for greatness and for joy and for art and for love. And we also have the capacity for cruelty and for evil and for sadness and for pain and things that are, unpleasant. And remaining cognitive of that, it infers a certain amount of humility. Like, believing that you are fundamentally evil requires a certain pride. Does that make sense? Like, it requires you to believe that you are a purer being than you are, but we are not. We are a coin with 2 different sides, and we are all capable of that darkness and of that light. And so it behooves us to be both humble and also compassionate toward ourselves and toward others, and to, I guess, avoid seeing anyone as a single side of that coin, because no person is other than that. All people are capable of that full range of human expression. So that's, I think, all I have to say about that. I don't know how long this has been, but quite, I think. One last shout out to Charismatic Voice. That's where I first heard this song. I will leave a link to her in the description and her video of this. And yeah, that's it. Peace.